On rare occasion, a game releases that truly transcends time. You're fully immersed in ways unimaginable. Emotions unexpected by a simple video game. Let us journey back in time to the Sony PlayStation, with time as the true test. We explore how this masterpiece cemented its place in the hearts of millions.
We couldn't decide on what PS1 game to cover, and we wanted to cover a ton of them.
Yeah.
However, we can't not cover the biggest PS1 game
Agreed.
that exists on the console.
Final Fantasy VII.
Final Fantasy VII. We couldn't just brush by that and put it on another episode. With how massive this game is, it had to be the first one for PS1.
Done.
It had to be.
Had to be. And we talked about not doing it because we just reviewed another kind of strategy-based game, and
Yeah.
But it's too big.
It's
too beautiful.
The impact that this game had, not only on gaming as a whole, but in pop culture as well, is just insane. Like, it's made its way into professional wrestling. Kenny Omega on one of his entrances at New Japan came out to One Winged Angel theme and dressed as Sephiroth.
So badass. Oh,
And
so good.
his finisher is called One Winged Angel.
That's awesome. Didn't know. I'm not familiar with the wrestling realm at all until you told us.
Yeah. So like
that's
not
super
only is it just a massive impact on gaming, because when this came out, like this game was unheard of to make a game like this.
cool. Absolutely for the
Like,
culture,
there
for
is
the time,
nothing
where
like
we're
it.
at
And
societally.
we touched on the games that are this graphic style. They just have that charm to them.
Yes.
This is exactly what we're talking about.
100%.
That charm, it's just unmatched.
It is, and it's funny. So first off, with you saying about pop culture, couldn't be more true because I knew about Sephiroth and Cloud before I ever played the game. Like, it was just his iconic Buster Sword, that enormous gargantuan 7-foot by 3-foot blade, and then of course Sephiroth for being Sephiroth, and his enormous mass immune. Am I saying that right? Is that right?
He's one of the biggest villains ever.
Iconic, beyond iconic.
Ever. He's gone beyond people that game and like the nerd culture. Like he is out there.
Absolutely.
He's villains in other games now. Kingdom Hearts, isn't he the villain in Kingdom Hearts?
He's not the villain, but he's kind of like a side optional boss for both Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Who's super hard. He's like next level hard. He's that boss, as he is.
Yeah.
Because he is. He is Sephiroth. He is. He's the pinnacle of what a villain is.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more with everything you mentioned about him being just a part of pop culture in general.
Exactly. I mean, to have something this massive, it's people that don't even play RPGs or really play games really at all, unless it's like the popular games to play, like
Right.
the streamer culture, that kind of thing. Like, even people that don't play huge, massive RPGs have played this game.
Absolutely.
And love this game.
Exactly.
That is how massive this game is.
And Final Fantasy, like, a lot of times when you mention Final Fantasy to someone, the first thing that's in their head is Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
It's everything, man.
It's
everything.
I think everybody has, maybe not maybe that's too broad of coverage there. I think a majority of people that grew up playing games have a nostalgia button for Final Fantasy VII, whether it's big, whether it's small.
Right.
Mine, I remember when I was a kid and I was playing Final Fantasy VII, I found it on a demo disc where I played like,
I didn't know that was the thing.
I don't know, like the first probably 5-10 minutes or whatever, however long demos lasted back then.
Yes.
And I remember being like, wow, this is crazy. And then I got it for, I don't know, Christmas probably. That's usually when I would get games, is during Christmas. When I got it, I remember playing it, and like, it's 3 discs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's massive. It's
What games
we've
back
said-
then, like, did you have 3 discs? Well, I remember my disc 3 broke.
Oh no.
So I could only play the first 2 discs. So I personally have never beaten this game.
Wait, I'm sorry. Well,
I
I didn't know this until now. I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, I have never
The what?
fully beaten this game.
We got stuff to work on.
I know like the lore and stuff just from, watching videos on YouTube or
but
just
you have to experience it.
Yes, definitely.
You have
I've
to experience
experienced
it.
some of the things that happened in this game, but I haven't even played this game for quite some time. I wanted to dive into it the other night because I knew we had planned on talking about it, but I passed out on the couch.
That's all right.
I'm
I'm still nauseous though that you've never completed this game.
Yeah.
You purposely didn't bring this up beforehand. That's all right. That's okay. I can move past this. No, so it's so for me. I didn't delve into the Final Fantasy series until the PlayStation 2 was already out. I never had a PlayStation 1. I had a PlayStation 2, and from that, of course, played some PlayStation 1 games. It was one of the first PlayStation 1 games I played, and I remember it was difficult for me at first because I was used to the graphics, because graphics were everything at that time.
Yeah.
That they were everything. I mean, they're still, of course, incredibly important now, but I mean, anything you play from the last 7 years is pretty astonishing looking.
Yeah.
And it was I remember when I first played it, I was like, this is goofy looking. I don't know if I can.
Their arms look like little hourglasses.
The arms, exactly. Thank you. That's what I wanted to talk
The
about.
PlayStation,
arms.
where it's just sharp.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
There's
they're
no
like
curves.
barbells.
There's no curves. It's sharp.
And I didn't get it, and I was like, what? Anyway, no. So yeah, it was tough for me at first because it was like taking this huge back step, and I was like, this is absurd looking.
Yeah.
And then I started playing it, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Once I got engaged in battle, and then I started seeing those experience points rack up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was just, it was everything I needed. And next thing you know, even at the young age, I was probably in junior high, late junior high, if not so 7th, 8th grade, maybe 9th grade. And once I started getting wrapped into the story, even at that young age, I was like, oh, this is gold.
Yeah.
It just sucked me in.
Yeah. Tractor beam. Sucked me right in.
It's hard to say really anything bad about this game. I mean, people do have things, but that's when you're starting to get real deep.
Deep and and even nitpicky, I would say.
Nitpicking, yeah.
Super nitpicky.
Yeah, but for the average person, this game is the pinnacle of storytelling.
Fantastic. As long as you have an appreciation for older games.
Even then, if you just like story-driven games and you don't need crazy good graphics
to enjoy yourself.
But the pre-rendered backgrounds in this are beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
Beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. Even the environments, while exploring,
yes.
the environments were engaging. They were fun. They were fun.
So fun fact. We'll get into. I'll hold that fact.
All right.
This game came out in 1997.
Keep your secrets.
You're gonna hear it here in a second. This game came out in 1997. It was developed by Square.
Mm-hmm.
So this was before they merged 2 companies, Square and then Enix. So they became Square Enix.
Okay.
So Square made some of the best games of all time, period.
List them off.
Chrono Trigger. The Final Fantasies, obviously.
Of course, yes.
They made the Legend of Mana games, like Secret of Mana.
Oh,
They made those games.
Okay.
Parasite Eve.
I don't know that one.
That's like a survival horror game that was
Okay.
also on the PS1. Xenogears, which is also a very well-beloved RPG.
Yes.
Enix, the company, made Dragon Quest, or Dragon Warrior when it first came around, but they merged companies to become Square Enix, and they just continue to
Killing it. Yeah.
put out some
Doing
of
amazing.
the greatest games of
Absolutely.
all time. Like, they are just a solid developer. This game was actually being developed for the N64. However,
Okay.
when the Nintendo-Sony deal fell apart, because they were, I don't know if you know this, but they were supposed to develop a console together, Sony and Nintendo.
I did not.
They were supposed to develop a console together because that's when Sony wanted to get into video games. So they came together and they were working on a console. There's a prototype that exists and somebody owns it. It just got sold or bought from an auction, like, I don't know, probably a year or two ago.
Can't even imagine the price tag on that.
It's not as, I think it was like 100-something thousand. I could be wrong, but I think it was right around there.
Not
But
too much.
for something like that.
Right.
I mean,
I would have honestly expected something more. But
so when
fair enough.
Sony decided to break off from Nintendo and they just had their falling out, Sony started developing the PlayStation. Well, they, instead of going cartridge-based, they went disc-based. With the disc-based, they could provide more storage on the disc, which would provide more opportunity to make better-looking games because you have more storage on the disc.
Yes.
So basically, Square was like, we like what you're doing here, and we want to make this game massive. We want to make it huge. We want to make it a big deal. So they stopped the development on the Nintendo 64 and moved to Sony.
That's wild. I never knew that.
It
Since you
was,
have
the
such
first Final Fantasy that was on Sony It was on Sony exclusively.
exclusive. Okay. Now, since you're such a plethora of knowledge, and I just thought of this, I feel like you might know the answer. You might not. Why the black discs?
I don't know.
Is that a thing? Yeah, right.
I
Right.
don't know.
I've always wondered that. We're gonna have. At least I'm gonna need to look that up because I've always wondered it. Never looked it up.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that peculiar? I think it's odd. I think it's cool.
I'm not aware.
Sorry.
But
Anyway, not to derail us, but
so yeah, that was a big thing back then because imagine if that would have been on the N64.
oh yeah. Oh.
The developers of this game also, when they were making the game and they wanted their backgrounds and the environment to be alive and detailed and everything like that, they were inspired by how Resident Evil did their backgrounds.
Okay.
And stuff like that. Like, they had the pre-rendered backgrounds. So, I think it was, yeah, Resident Evil, I think.
okay.
Pretty sure. Or no, maybe it was Alone in the Dark. Alone in the Dark or Resident Evil, one of those two. They were inspired by the pre-rendered backgrounds, so they wanted to do that for this game, which it speaks for itself.
100%. Absolutely.
It adds that beauty to it, that timeless beauty, so to speak. So they also remade this game relatively recently. It's releasing in 3 parts. The first part came out in 2020. Massive release.
So great.
However, I think the pandemic and everything had something to do with just everybody really diving in hard to this game because no one had anything else to do.
Exactly.
People were
Nothing else to
streaming
do.
it. People that didn't even play games bought PlayStation 4s just to play this game.
Wow.
People that didn't even that hadn't played games in forever bought consoles just to play the remake.
Speaks for itself.
And the reason that they remade this game, so the developers, to get back to this story of how this came to be and how the remake came to be is wild. So the remake was announced. They did a a tech demo on the PlayStation 3 in 2005 of the intro sequence to the game.
Okay.
So they had it on the PS3 as a tech demo, and people were like, "Oh my god, they're remaking this game! Holy shit!" And it just fell off. It just went silent. Then, at E3 2015, they announced the remake, that they were 100% remaking it. The developers chose to actually go and remake it because this game meant so much to them. They wanted to see it get remade and retold. They wanted to do it themselves.
Okay.
And they wanted to be alive to see it. They
That's
didn't
fair.
they didn't want to let a new person remake it and retell it and they wouldn't be able to see it through. They wanted
beautiful.
to see it themselves.
That's beautiful. Yeah. No.
How
because
poetic is that?
That's super poetic. Poetic's the perfect way to describe that. I didn't know 90% of that.
Yeah, I did. I did
that's
huge
wild.
deep dive the last couple of days on just watching like retrospective videos about this, and like it is massive. And I'm going to like not hit on a bunch of things because if I were to touch on everything,
we'd be here. For
we'd
3
be here
hours.
for like the whole entire night.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
obviously we can't do that. Nor do we want to because we want to make this palatable for people to watch.
Exactly.
Like so this story is so massive in scale and can be just drawn upon, which the remake did. Like
Exceptionally well.
they made it 3 parts because they wanted to take each important location in the game
And really expand on it.
and just make it its own game. So like the first part of the remake was all in what's it called?
Midgar.
Midgar, yeah.
Midgar.
It was all in Midgar, I think, right?
Yeah, you were in the slums of Midgar, you know, in Shinra skyscraper, Shinra Tower, if you will, and then it expanded. Oh, I forget the little like casino town. Oh, it evades me.
yeah. I can't remember the
name of it, but regardless, but still, it was within.
It was
that,
all
that,
like within that area.
Exactly.
Then
yes.
the second part is going to be like the next big location that you were
So
in.
excited.
And then the next part that's going to release, who knows when,
Probably another 5 years.
is going to
break my
be
heart. Yes.
in like that's going to be like the big hoorah.
That's awesome.
And they did release like a prequel to this story on the PSP, Crisis Core.
Yes, so good.
They remade that too on the PS4. They released that as a full-blown remake. So, and that just expands on like the what happens like beforehand and what
Leading up.
part
to,
of me wants to dive into spoilers, but part of me doesn't because like I said, this is such a massive story. Like
there's so much
to plug. So I'm gonna just, if you're watching this, there's gonna be some spoilers here. So if you don't like it, just go down
There it
just
is.
a
Spoiler
little
alert.
bit. Spoiler alert. Yeah. When with Cloud, how he has those like little breakdowns of where he like misses, like he has like the
his
voices
psyche,
talking to him
exactly,
and stuff like that.
yes.
And he remembers getting a picture taken with Sephiroth and how did I blank on Tifa?
Yes.
He sees the picture and he's not in it. It's another guy named Zack.
Correct.
The Crisis Core is the story of Zack.
Of Zack and exactly where
stuff
a
like
lot
that.
of Cloud's
Yeah, because Cloud is
memories
just
are.
like a regular like bottom of the barrel soldier.
Yeah,
He's
he
not
was-
like the prime soldier.
No, he's not Sephiroth. He's
Exactly.
not,
Yeah.
Exactly. He's
Yeah.
kind of a he's part of Soldier, but he's, I want to say failed experiment, but he's not what Hojo wanted to be
Yes.
the perfect soldier.
Exactly.
Which
That's
was Sephiroth. Of
Sephiroth,
course.
yeah.
Yes.
And like that's another thing too that happens is like Sephiroth finds out like that his memories aren't what he thinks, and he holds himself up in the mansion and reads all those papers and finds out all that information. That's when he starts becoming like the real big villain.
His whole psyche breaks
Yes.
because, well, imagine if you, I actually resonate with Sephiroth's character. Not saying that you should go on an entire massacre and Nibelheim,
Burn down a city,
and then want to become a god and absorb all life essence.
Yeah.
Not saying that, but like I get it because his memories were false. Imagine if you woke up tomorrow and you realized, oh, actually,
The life that I thought that I was living is completely
you have no
different
daughter, you
than-
have no wife, etc.
Yeah.
That would break you. That would break me.
Yeah.
And so I do resonate with Sephiroth's character. I mean, his story itself is so tragic, and him having, I don't know any other way to put it, but mommy issues. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
With
Genova.
With Genova, thank you. That's 100% what it is. But like, that's also like, that's a thing.
Yeah.
And so the story touches on, of course, so much fantasy, but it also, at its core, relates to a lot about the human condition.
So
and I think it's brilliant.
Funny enough, back to the development process, the story writers, during I think it was Final Fantasy 3, he experienced I think it was Final Fantasy 3. His mother died during that process, and when they were writing stuff for Final Fantasy 7, he was still grieving and going through that process.
Wow. Makes sense.
So he wanted to make the story really revolve around like the life, the death, the grief, that sort of cycle of life, which makes sense when you look at the story,
100%.
because it's about a company that wants to siphon
all
the life force. And some people believe that their loved ones have passed on, but they are in the life force, so they can still sense them and everything like that. Like Aerith.
Yes.
I think it's either a theory or it's actual game.
Okay.
Canon. I'm not sure. I think it was a theory where, yeah, it is a theory, because they said that there's a big theory that Aerith and Sephiroth both have like this connection to like the other side kind of thing.
Okay.
And because when in the remake, Aerith can sense a lot of things that she's not supposed to know.
Right.
Which I just watched the video of that today beforehand, where like in the remake she like knows things like that she shouldn't know because she hasn't seen it happen yet. So like it's either a nod to that theory or it's like kind of cementing that theory of like those two having like this connection, because in the remake, I think when she looks into like the hall, like the alley, and nothing's there, I think the One-Winged Angel theme is playing, which would make sense if they have that connection,
right?
And they're both drawn to Cloud.
Makes sense.
It kind of makes sense.
And also, I mean, I think it would be fair to say, because she, of course, is a descendant of the ancients.
Yes.
What's the name of the what are the ancients called? Just escaped me. But whatever the ancient race is, they had a direct connection with the lifestream, with mako energy.
Yes.
And so I think there's some there's some stock there. That would make sense.
And I mean, one of the most crucial moments, not in just this game, but in the whole gaming sphere.
Are you going to say the thing? Are you going to talk
I'm
about
going to
the thing?
say the thing.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Big spoiler alert.
Big, massive spoiler alert. Aerith's death.
Dude.
Huge.
Enormous. There was
deal.
never a time where you had a character throughout like the entirety of a game and they're just gone.
Yeah.
Like they're just gone. Like you not only developed like a relationship with the character, but you grinded to level this character up to get their whatever accessories, weapons. And I still remember when that scene happened, I was like, of course, everyone was mind blown. But I was like, oh, she's just gonna be resurrected. Something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get her back.
Nope.
That's it. Show's over. Show's over for Aerith.
That was brutal.
And let's be honest, that was a bold move. It was a bold move to
Very.
do. You know, even today, if you were to do that,
But
such
it
a bold
paid
move. But
off.
it's just so well done.
The storytelling in this game is what really set the stage for what you can do in a video game.
Absolutely.
It's like there are moments in video games. Like I was listening to, I forget who it was, but they were referring to this game.
Okay.
And they said, like, it really resonated with me because it really covers, like, the angle of, like, why some games just draw you in and you just are attached to that
Emotionally
game. Think of it as a
attached,
movie
yes.
where you're watching something, you're involved in the story, and you're watching it unfold. Now take that, and you're now, you're playing that story, but you're attached as your own character in the game.
Yes, you're mentally, emotionally involved in it.
Yeah.
And you're right, because there have been games throughout life. I've just played the game. I'm like, oh, that was a good game.
Yeah.
But there have been games that have just affected me emotionally in
Yes.
such deep ways. And I think that's part of the beauty of video games, films, music, is it can speak to some of the deepest levels and volumes of what it is to be human.
Yeah.
And
It can
for
make
the fact
you
that video games
feel-
can capture that is
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, I mean,
It's-
there's been games that I've played that have legitimately made me cry.
Oh, it brought you to tears. I'll say it right now. I'll say it. For me, Kingdom Hearts.
Really?
When I
That is
finished
not-
that,
that is not where I
Nope,
thought you were
figured
going.
Not. When I finished, I was like late elementary school. When I finished that game, I was in tears. It was just one of those, just to speak to this. It
Yeah.
was one of those games.
See, I never got real deep into the Kingdom Hearts. I tried.
It was
but
only the first and second for me. After that, it got too convoluted and ridiculous. But
I
it's
just couldn't
that's
do
fair.
it. The game that made me just break down, The Last of Us.
Oh, so good. You're not human if you're.
I mean,
not.
if that game
No.
didn't make you cry, another game that's just storyline
So good.
level, just incredible.
Through the roof.
Just really speaks to, I don't think there would be storytelling like it is now if this game didn't start that movement.
Precisely. And I mean, aside from entertainment, what is the point of games? To me, it's to tell a story.
That's what draws
it
me
is.
to a lot of the games that I've really come to love and go back to is I want to feel that story again. I want to hear that story again. I want to watch that story again.
Yes.
And I want to relive it like I did when I first played it, which is why we revisit these old games and why it's
100%.
so important, especially to me, is I think it's really important to make these games super accessible to a new audience.
I agree.
Whether it's remastering it, whether it's remaking it from the ground up, whether it's just porting it to a system. Whatever you need to do, make these games accessible.
That's a beautiful point, and that's not a notion I've really given much thought to. But you're right, because when you have some of these older games, when you have a game that's 20, 30 years old, it's not going to be as accessible. It's just typically not going to be, and you're robbing people of those experiences.
Exactly.
If it's not.
That's a big thing that I'm looking forward to as a dad when my kid gets older and can really understand stories and really grasp all the emotions that you feel when you're told the proper story. And if she has interest in games and she wants to play the more story involved games, I want to not watch her play them, but I want her to play them on her own.
Yes.
And come to me and be like, "Oh my gosh, Dad! I played Final Fantasy VII."
That hits me. That hits me
And
in the feels.
I
You're right.
cannot believe that story. That was incredible. And she takes interest into like really grabbing onto, you know, the loss in the game, the cycle of life in the game, and like what it means like with the corporation trying to like bring it down, and like the whole story beats of the whole game. And it really resonates with her, and it's just like, that's what it's about, man.
And seeing her experience some of those same emotions
Exactly.
with the storytelling and just sifting through it all, that's a beautiful thing. And that's when you just hug her. You just hug her.
Yeah.
You just hold her and say yes.
Like just having like a kid that has an interest in gaming, like whether it's playing Fortnite or whether it's playing a Call of Duty or whatever, like if you can steer them in the direction of like revisiting old games,
yes.
like push them in, like that's the thing I like about remakes too, is like it's refreshing the formula and really like revamping for a new audience, because as a new audience you don't know any better. You're spoon-fed all of these like beautiful games and like these beautiful looking movies and cinematics and cutscenes, and like they're just incredible. It's literally like watching a movie. But when you go back to like the very basic, where you have to like really be touched by the words
Yes.
or touched by this like the scenery,
it's a different experience.
It's a different experience.
It's a different experience. It's on a deeper level, I would say, because we can get caught up in the visuals and, you know, the graphics, this and that. But bringing it back to some of these classics, such as Final Fantasy VII, it all goes back to the storytelling. Like we've said so many times, that because you had to rely on that. Of course, you know, for the time, it was visually stunning for the time, and you know, 97.
If you hear that going on up there, that's
our children.
Our children
Running amok, playing.
We told them to try and like dial it down, but
if
if you're a dad and you have kids, you should know that they don't listen.
It's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's a beautiful thing, though.
It is.
It is. But it really is. I think you hit on that perfectly.
Yeah.
And broke that down so well, because that is when I look back on certain games such as Final Fantasy, Shining Force. I could just go on a list, but I look back on those, and it's not just the nostalgia, but it's the emotional tugging and the pull that I remember. I remember, you know, sitting in my bed playing the game and just being in awe and just being so wrapped into it. It wasn't just because I was playing a game. No, it was so much more than that. There was so much more depth to it than that. It was I was experiencing just so much more, you know?
Yeah, and there's very few games, I think, now with how many come out, like you don't get to really appreciate that story as much, because it's just on to the next thing.
That's what it is. What quests can I do? What side quests can I do?
Yeah.
How am I going to level up to get this gear, this or that? And it's more objective based.
Which is one thing that I don't like, and this might be a hot take, is I don't like the fact that they did the remake in three separate games.
Okay.
I don't like it, and here's why. Because I feel like when you take these three huge locations and you make the game base around these locations, you run into the possibility of droning on or inflating it or fluffing it to a point that just makes people lose interest.
Okay, fair enough.
Which back when this, you know, came out, you had the entire game.
It's all right there.
Right there. You just
That's
play
it.
through it. And when it takes 5 years in between games,
That's my big thing. 5 years is a long time.
There's so much that comes out between those times. Like, your interest gets pulled, and like
100%.
you don't get to properly like be involved in that story as hard.
Yes.
Like when I get to play,
because you had half a decade
exactly
in between.
and then you just
I
run
agree.
into that. That's so much time. Like,
It's a lot of time.
if somebody started playing the remake, and that was their first introduction to Final Fantasy VII, then they're like involved and they're like, yes, I love this game. To finish the story, that's 10 years.
It's insane. That's a lot of time.
That's a lot of time. 10 years, if you're 20, you're putting into your 30s. You might be a parent by then.
Yes.
You're well into your career. You don't have as much time to dive into an entire game.
Not at all.
And the remake and this game here takes roughly, if you're just running forward and not doing many side things, it takes like 33 to 36 hours, maybe 40 on the high end to beat. That's just for the first part of the remake.
It's a lot, and I couldn't agree more. It is not only do I just want the next game, and I want it immediately. Even outside of that, though, it's correct. We have the part 2 is getting ready to drop here.
By the day that this episode drops,
that's right.
It's release day for the next part of remake,
and so
Rebirth is what it's called.
It's wild that was 5 years ago, and there's since there's been so much time that's passed. Yeah, I know the story of Final Fantasy VII, but I nearly want to have to now replay the entire first game just as a refresher.
Yeah.
To remember, recall the emotions, bring it all back together in a package.
Exactly.
Just so I can experience the next chapter, and it's just unheard of. When I remember when I first heard, the next one's not going to come out for 5 years. I was like, that's ridiculous. They're not going to take that long. That's silly.
Like
no.
I understand like really wanting to expand the story
flesh it out
as good as this, and really just visit and like really expand that universe and those areas and making them like something just massive.
Right.
Which like is great. But I feel like you could have just done it in at very minimum 2 parts.
Right. I actually didn't know. I thought that there were only going to be 2 parts.
Yeah.
Originally, I had no idea that there was going to be a third, and that's stretching it. It's stretching it a bit. But
I would be happy if it was just here's the remake, the entire game redone, and it takes you 80. If it took you 80 hours to complete, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Because I have the game, I can play it. I don't have to wait 10 years to complete the game.
Right.
And see everything. Like 10 years is a long time.
It's a very long time. It's I don't know when this has happened before. At least for a game that I'm not heavily involved in.
I don't think there has been, because any remake that I can think of, one, it hasn't been on something as massive as this. Like we said, how massive this game is to not only gaming but pop culture in general. Like, it was massive.
Was it massive?
Yeah. yeah. Let's all capital letters, massive.
Yes, absolutely enormous.
To want to revisit it, like, absolutely, but to have to play it over a span of like just like 15
it's a bit much.
years.
I'm gonna play it. Like, it's gonna happen. I know that I'm gonna play it, but it's different because of the time that's passed. I'm already experiencing now with the second part's releasing. I'm excited that's coming out, but I'm not like counting down the days that I'm gonna purchase a day of. So much time has passed. I'm like, I can wait. If I've waited 5 years, I can wait a little bit longer until I finish what I'm playing right now.
Yeah,
and that's where I think that it falls short with this timeline. But I digress.
yeah. I mean, that's a whole thing, but like that's a hot take. The fact that they had to do it in 3 parts. Like, I'm not a huge fan of it. I know some people, are, because they do, like, this is their game. This is the thing that they're like, I will do anything. I will buy it day one. I will buy the biggest edition I can buy. I need it.
Right.
Shoot it into my veins.
Yes.
But for like the average person that we're trying to talk to, like, it's a
might
bit
not be
much.
the case.
And
Exactly.
for me, like, yes, this game is huge, and I do love this game as much as I haven't even just beaten the game. It's a game that I will finish.
Right.
100%. It's a game that I will go back to, and it is a game that I will show my child when it is her time to play it.
Right.
Yes, that is
And we'll update you when LJ finishes the game. We will.
Yeah. So, for this game, you can play it anywhere. It's been ported to everything.
Every single system.
Any
right.
digital marketplace that you can buy games, you can get Final Fantasy VII, the original at least. You can get it on the Xbox. You can get it on PlayStation. You can get it on Switch. You can probably get it on your phone. You can get it on Steam.
Probably.
You can get it anywhere. Like you can access this game no matter what you have. You can for this game, I would recommend putting time aside to play it.
Oh, absolutely. Really involve yourself.
Get involved.
Allow yourself to have that time.
Yeah.
To just connect with the story, enjoy the character arcs, the character development, explore. There's so much to explore. From your extra characters, Vincent Valentine, to just every nook and cranny.
The
of
optional
this game.
bosses.
The weapon. Oh, don't get me
weapons.
started on
Yeah.
Sapphire,
Emerald.
Yeah. Are we just listing Pokemon games now? But yeah, I'm pretty sure those are it.
Sapphire, Emerald.
Oh,
I think there's a Ruby weapon.
I just remembered something. I had the strategy guide to this game, and I remember when I turned. I'm pretty sure.
I think I might have too.
I remember turning to the page and seeing like the Sapphire and Emerald weapon. I'm like, what? You're underwater? This is insane. No way. And so good. Just
there's a lot to do in this game.
so much to explore, so much fun to have had, and just the we didn't even. There's so much to cover with this. We didn't even get to talk about the mechanics of the game.
There's so much to cover in this, and like I said, we don't want to sit here and say everything that has already been. I mean, yes, I would be completely fine with it because anytime I get to talk to anybody about video games and have them interact back is a win in my book because I don't know that many people that I can talk to on a daily basis that are like
genuinely
into
passionate,
games other than these two yahoos that are in the basement with me.
Yeah.
I am a huge nerd.
Yes. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a beautiful thing.
So if you haven't yet, for some reason, played the original Final Fantasy VII, absolutely play it. You cannot go wrong with it. No. Story's incredible. Gameplay is incredible.
I would even go so far, as to say that there's even like these amazing philosophical notions in it that will just make you think about life and reflect.
It will hit all the emotions.
It does.
It will hit all the emotions, and you might cry. You might get mad. You it's just gonna hit everything.
It is.
It's a game that's going to hit everything.
To everyone who's already familiar, of course, it's a masterpiece. I don't even need to say it, but I'm saying it because I have to say it.
Absolutely,
it's a masterpiece. It's one of a kind. It has defined the genre. It has been a powerhouse for where we have come, where we've now gone. With gaming and the storytelling and just all the mechanics involved. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Experience it for yourself. Tell us. Comment. Has Final Fantasy VII made you laugh, cry?
Has it made you angry? Or have you not enjoyed it? That's one
fair.
thing
That's
that
okay.
I would love to hear. If there are people out there that are like, I didn't really enjoy it.
I'm not going to be upset with you. I'm going to say, that's interesting. Tell me more.
Don't be afraid to comment. Don't be afraid to say it in the comments. That's.
If we don't stop now, we're just gonna keep going.
Yes. Yeah. So comment, subscribe, do the whole shebang. Interact with us. Let us know what we can improve on, what games you want to see. Like I said, it can be a popular game that everybody's played. It can be a game that maybe nobody's played. I'm always looking for new stuff. I don't have much time, but the time that I do, if I'm covering it on the podcast, I get to play it anyway because I have to capture gameplay footage. So
I see your point.
I just get to go back and just play all these games, not to completion, but
boy. Oh,
Yikes.
Right, yikes.
So the next episode, we're gonna kind of go off the beaten path of the progression that we've been going. It started on the PS2, but it really took life on the 360. Really, the 360. The PS3 it was on as well, but it really, at least with my group of friends, really took life on 360. We're not going to tell you what it is, obviously. That's how we do things here. But it's another game that was a massive, just unlike anything anybody had ever seen.
Until next time.
Until next time.